Montgomery Clift was one of the most talented and enigmatic actors of Hollywood's golden age, known for his intense performances and good looks. However, Clift's life off-screen was filled with pain and struggle. He was a deeply private man, dealing with both physical and emotional suffering. In 1956, a near-fatal car accident left him severely disfigured, and although he continued acting, his career and mental health were never the same. The accident led to excruciating physical pain, which exacerbated his dependency on drugs and alcohol. Clift also struggled with his sexuality in an era when being openly gay or bisexual in Hollywood was fraught with stigma. This internal conflict, combined with the pressures of stardom, contributed to his emotional suffering and addiction. His reliance on alcohol and prescription drugs deepened over the years, further deteriorating his health and leading to his untimely death in 1966 at the age of 45. Join us as we delve into his life. Born on October 17, 1920, in Omaha, Nebraska, Edward Montgomery Clift was raised in a privileged, cosmopolitan family. His mother, Sunny Clift, was a strong-willed woman who believed her children were destined for greatness, while his father was a successful banker. Montgomery, or Monty as he was called, grew up between Europe and the US, receiving a sophisticated education. But despite his family's wealth, he was drawn to a different world, that of acting. At the age of 13, Clift made the bold decision to pursue acting professionally. Moving to New York City, he began studying under prominent acting teachers and was cast in Broadway productions by the time he was 15. Throughout the late 1930s and early 1940s, Clift established himself as a rising star in the New York theater scene, with standout performances in plays like There Shall Be No Night, 1940, and The Skin of Our Teeth, 1942. His intense stage presence and ability to convey deep emotion earned him critical acclaim. Despite his early stage success, Clift resisted the lure of Hollywood. He valued the integrity of live theater and was wary of the commercialism of the film industry. In fact, for nearly a decade, he turned down numerous film offers, waiting for the right role. Finally, in 1948, at age 28, Clift made his film debut in The Search, directed by Fred Zinnemann. Playing a war-weary soldier helping a young boy survive in post-World War II Europe, Clift's performance was a revelation. His naturalistic acting style, marked by subtlety and emotional nuance, was groundbreaking at the time. He earned his first Academy Award nomination for Best Actor for the role. That same year, Clift appeared opposite John Wayne in Red River, a Howard Hawks-directed Western that further solidified his place in Hollywood. Playing a sensitive and rebellious young cowhand, Clift's portrayal stood in stark contrast to Wayne's traditional masculinity, bringing a new dimension to the typical Western hero. This film showcased his versatility and marked the beginning of his film career, but it also revealed the tension between his desire for meaningful roles and Hollywood's expectations. In the early 1950s, Montgomery Clift became known as part of a new generation of actors, alongside Marlon Brando and James Dean, who were redefining screen acting. Clift's performances were deeply introspective, raw, and often tinged with vulnerability. He refused to conform to the larger-than-life leading man image that Hollywood prized at the time. Instead, he chose roles that allowed him to explore complex characters struggling with inner conflicts. His next major success came in 1951 with A Place in the Sun, directed by George Stevens. Clift played George Eastman, a poor young man who becomes entangled in a love triangle that ultimately leads to tragedy. Starring opposite Elizabeth Taylor, Clift's performance was both magnetic and heartbreaking, earning him his second Academy Award nomination for Best Actor. His chemistry with Taylor was electric, and the two became lifelong friends. The film cemented his reputation as one of Hollywood's most talented actors. In 1953, Clift appeared in From Here to Eternity, a film that became a classic and won 8 Academy Awards. Clift's portrayal of Private Robert E. Lee Pruitt, a stubborn, emotionally scarred soldier stationed in Hawaii before the attack on Pearl Harbor, is one of the most iconic performances in film history. His refusal to box, his loyalty to his principles, and his tragic love affair with Donna Reed's character became defining aspects of the role. Clift again earned an Academy Award nomination, and the film's success propelled him further into stardom. On the night of May 12, 1956, Montgomery Clift's life took a tragic turn. While filming Raintree County, Clift attended a dinner party at Elizabeth Taylor's Beverly Hills home. After leaving the party, Clift lost control of his car on a dangerous, winding road, crashing into a telephone pole and the cliffside. His friend, actor Kevin McCarthy, witnessed the accident and rushed back to the party for help. Elizabeth Taylor, famously protective of Clift, found him conscious but severely injured, trapped beneath the dashboard. In a swift and selfless act, she pulled a dislodged tooth from his mouth that was cutting into his tongue, potentially saving his life. Clift's injuries were extensive and devastating. A concussion, a broken jaw and nose, fractures to his sinuses and cheekbones, and numerous facial lacerations. He required plastic surgery to reconstruct his face, a procedure that was advanced for its time. Despite the success of the surgeries, his face was never quite the same. His once perfect features now bore subtle but noticeable differences, particularly on the left side, which became mostly immobile. After 2 months of recovery, Clift returned to the set of Raintree County to complete filming, astonishing everyone. He even predicted that audiences would be drawn to the movie to see the difference in his appearance pre- and post-accident. Unfortunately, the crash marked the beginning of a downward spiral for Clift. The physical pain from his injuries was unrelenting, and to cope, he turned to alcohol and pills, a pattern that worsened over time. His health deteriorated, and his once youthful and vibrant appearance began to fade. The crash, and the subsequent reliance on substances to numb his pain, became one of the most significant turning points in his life, ushering in what many describe as the longest suicide in Hollywood history. It's heartbreaking to think that such a talented actor, at the peak of his career, would see his life altered so drastically in a single moment. His slow decline stands as a reminder of both the fragility of fame and the price of stardom. For nearly 9 years after his devastating car crash, Montgomery Clift continued making films, though many saw his work in this period as a shadow of his former self. Acting teacher Robert Lewis famously called this phase the longest suicide in Hollywood history, due to Clift's growing dependence on painkillers and alcohol, which exacerbated his already fragile state. His erratic behavior began to alienate friends and colleagues. Despite this, Clift pushed forward, with notable performances in The Young Lions, 1958, Lonely Hearts, 1958, Suddenly, Last Summer, 1959, and Wild River, 1960. It's as if Clift was holding on to his art while slowly losing grip on his life. It's painful to imagine such talent wrestling with inner turmoil so openly. Clift's next projects showed a shift. In The Misfits, 1961, and Judgment at Nuremberg, 1961, he took on smaller supporting roles, though his performances were no less powerful. Playing a worn-out rodeo rider in The Misfits, he impressed the crew by delivering a phone booth scene in just 2 hours. Marilyn Monroe, who was struggling with her own personal demons, famously said of Clift, "He's the only person I know who's in worse shape than I am." Imagine two of Hollywood's most beautiful stars, both ravaged by inner battles, finding camaraderie in each other's pain. It's poetic, but also heartbreakingly tragic. Clift's standout moment during this period came in Judgment at Nuremberg, where he played a mentally disabled German baker testifying about being a victim of Nazi sterilization. His 12-minute scene was raw and haunting, earning him his 4th Academy Award nomination. Some speculated that his performance reflected his own emotional breakdowns, but Clift meticulously crafted his role, rewriting dialogue and delivering one of the most poignant moments of his career. In a way, Clift's performance was a mirror of his own struggles, holding on with dignity despite overwhelming odds. However, trouble soon followed. After completing Freud, The Secret Passion, 1962, Clift was sued by Universal Studios for his absences, which caused production delays. He countersued, claiming the relentless script changes and a set injury had left him struggling to keep up. Though he won the legal battle, his reputation took a hit, and for the next 4 years, he was effectively blacklisted from film work. Imagine being a once golden star, now sidelined and scrutinized. Hollywood's swift rise and fall narrative had its grip on Clift's life, and it didn't let go. Unable to find film roles, Clift turned to voice work, narrating The Glass Menagerie in 1964 and voicing a documentary about William Faulkner in 1965. In a small but touching moment, film director Peter Bogdanovich recounted Clift visiting a cinema showing a revival of his 1953 film I Confess. In the guestbook, a fan had written, "Anything with Montgomery Clift," a testament to his enduring appeal despite his struggles. Elizabeth Taylor, ever loyal to her friend, put her salary on the line to have Clift cast in Reflections in a Golden Eye. In preparation, Clift accepted a role in The Defector, 1966, performing his own stunts. But before Reflections could begin shooting, Clift passed away in July 1966 at age 45. He was replaced by Marlon Brando. Even in the end, there's a poetic connection between Clift and Brando, two actors who defined and redefined Hollywood's leading men. But one burned out, while the other continued to evolve. Montgomery Clift's personal life was a fascinating interplay of privacy, affection, and complexity, reflecting the deep dualities of his public and private worlds. He was a man who, while notoriously guarded about his inner life, was known for his friendliness and warmth. His relationships, especially with close friend Elizabeth Taylor, blurred the lines between platonic and romantic affection, making their bond one of Hollywood's most captivating partnerships. Clift and Taylor's connection went beyond the typical studio-engineered publicity stunts. Paramount, sensing their undeniable chemistry, arranged for Taylor to be Clift's date at the Los Angeles premiere of The Heiress. This was Hollywood's golden era, when stars were seen as larger-than-life figures. And what better way to enhance that image than to pair two of its brightest together? Behind the glitz, Taylor, like countless other young women, seemed genuinely smitten with Clift during the filming of A Place in the Sun. Their on-screen romance felt so genuine that it set a new standard for cinematic chemistry. But this wasn't just movie magic. Taylor remained devoted to Clift for his entire life, standing by him through personal struggles and the public scrutiny that came with them. In 2000, at the GLAAD Media Awards, Taylor honored her late friend and finally confirmed what had been long speculated but never publicly addressed. Clift was gay. This revelation didn't just shed light on Clift's private life, but also underscored the depth of their bond. While Taylor was the first to make this public declaration, Clift's brother offered a different perspective, stating that he believed Clift to be bisexual. Clift's internal struggles were not just private battles, but were actively confronted during his therapy in the late 1950s. His conversations with his psychiatrist reflected the intense conflict he faced in coming to terms with his sexuality in an era when such matters were shrouded in secrecy and stigma. His mother, in a taped conversation after his death, disclosed that she had known about his homosexuality early on, adding another layer to the tragedy of his life, knowing but never fully accepting or discussing. Clift's relationships spanned both genders, but his most meaningful and long-lasting bonds were with men. He had significant relationships with figures like Jack Larson, known for playing Jimmy Olsen in The Adventures of Superman, and the theater actor William LaMessina, with whom he shared a 3-year relationship. LaMessina, who remained a close friend until Clift's death, preserved memories of their time together with an almost nostalgic tenderness, keeping film reels of Clift's leisure moments with friends. But perhaps one of the most emotionally charged relationships Clift had was with Jerome Robbins, the brilliant Broadway choreographer. Their relationship was intense, intimate, and secretive, camouflaged behind a facade of dating women. Robbins was devastated when Clift decided to leave their relationship and move to Hollywood, signaling a professional and personal shift that Robbins couldn't easily accept. The breakup wasn't just the end of their romantic involvement. It seemed to haunt Robbins for years, Interestingly, it was Clift who supposedly inspired Robbins to develop the concept for West Side Story, one of Broadway's most legendary musicals. According to actor Russ Tamblyn, Robbins shared that the basic premise, Romeo and Juliet with New York street gangs, came from a casual idea Clift had pitched at a party. Robbins, ever the visionary, couldn't shake the notion, and it eventually transformed into the timeless classic we know today. Robbins wasn't just an admirer of Clift's looks or charm. He deeply respected his intellect, once referring to him as a theatrical genius. In the early 1950s, Barney Balaban, president of Paramount Pictures, decided to mix business with pleasure by inviting Montgomery Clift along on a family vacation to the tropical Nassau, Bahamas. The sun, sand, and crystal-clear waters weren't the only things sparkling. Judy Balaban, Barney's daughter, claimed she and Clift instantly connected, becoming inseparable for months. According to Judy, they were joined at the hip, a classic Hollywood power couple, at least in appearance. In August 1951, she even accompanied him to the New York premiere of A Place in the Sun as his date, setting the rumor mill ablaze. But while the press was busy speculating about Clift and Judy's relationship, the actor was fighting his own secret battles. Long before social media made scandals go viral, Clift was the target of blackmail phone calls threatening to expose his homosexuality. The harassment was relentless, forcing him to change his number repeatedly. The public didn't know, and neither did Judy Balaban. Behind the facade, Clift was secretly dating British actor Roddy McDowall, whom he had met through his Lassie Come Home co-star, Elizabeth Taylor. Clift, ever the enigma, maintained his romance with McDowall while taking Judy to high-profile events. Roddy McDowall wasn't just another Hollywood fling. In fact, he was so devoted to Clift that he put his own career on hold, moving from Los Angeles to New York just to be closer to the man he adored. Talk about dedication. McDowall poured all his energy into Clift, though their relationship ended in heartbreak. So much so that Roddy reportedly attempted suicide after their split. Despite the personal turmoil, McDowall remained one of Clift's most loyal friends. Their bond was so strong that Clift later said he couldn't have finished his final film, The Defector, without Roddy's unwavering moral support. Clift's love life didn't follow any conventional Hollywood script. He had a brief but passionate romance with author Truman Capote while filming in Italy for Vittorio De Sica. And during the production of From Here to Eternity, Clift grew close to author James Jones, who openly admitted he would have had an affair with Clift, if only he had been asked. One of Clift's first intimate relationships was with composer Lehman Engel, and he was also romantically linked to writer Donald Wyndham and Wyndham's partner, Sandy Campbell. In the tangled web of Clift's love life, playwright Arthur Loron claimed that Clift had a fling with actor Farley Granger. Yet through all the romantic entanglements and professional highs and lows, Clift forged a lasting friendship with fellow actor Marlon Brando. The famously brooding Brando even showed up at Clift's house. Yet through all the romantic entanglements and professional highs and lows, Clift forged a lasting friendship with fellow actor Marlon Brando. The famously brooding Brando even showed up at Clift's house, offering to accompany him to Alcoholics Anonymous meetings. It's hard to imagine two titans of old Hollywood in a support group together, but that's the kind of loyalty Clift inspired, even from Hollywood royalty. Hollywood may have painted Clift as a heartthrob, but the real story behind the curtain was far more complicated, with loyalty, love, and tragedy all playing their parts. On July 22, 1966, Montgomery Clift spent most of the day in solitude at his New York City townhouse, located at 217 East 61st Street. His only company was his private nurse and companion, Lorenzo James, though they hadn't exchanged many words throughout the day. As the evening dragged into night, the silence between them continued. Sometime after midnight, just before 1 a.m., James approached Clift, who was in bed reading, and casually asked if he wanted to watch a rebroadcast of The Misfits airing as a late-night movie. Clift's response was swift and curt, "Absolutely not." Without saying anything more, James retired to his own room for the night, leaving Clift to his book and his thoughts. At 6:30 a.m. the next morning, James woke up and went to check on Clift. When he found the bedroom door locked and received no response from inside, concern quickly turned to panic. Unable to break the door down, James raced to the back garden, desperately climbing a ladder to enter through the second-floor window. Inside, he discovered a tragic scene. Clift was dead, lying undressed in his bed with his eyeglasses still on and his fists clenched at his sides. The room was eerily quiet. James immediately used the bedroom phone to contact Clift's physicians and the medical examiner's office. Clift's body was soon taken to the city morgue, where an autopsy revealed the cause of death: a heart attack brought on by occlusive coronary artery disease. There were no signs of foul play or suicide. While many speculated that drug addiction played a role in Clift's death, the autopsy revealed something more complex. Along with the lingering effects of dysentery and chronic colitis, Clift also suffered from an underactive thyroid, a condition that, among other things, can lower blood pressure. This medical issue likely made Clift appear intoxicated at times, even when he was completely sober. For years, people had whispered about Clift's erratic behavior, blaming drugs or alcohol. But the revelation of his thyroid condition paints a different picture. One of a man silently battling not only the pressures of fame but also his deteriorating health. How much of his self-destructive image was really just a misunderstood medical condition?